Okay, I recently just finished Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance, and since I haven't done a thoughts video for Icarus Uprising yet, I thought I would knock them both out in the same video. I'll start with Kingdom Hearts. The game takes place after Recoded, which I haven't played yet, but I've read the synopsis. Sora and Riku are summoned by Yin Sid to take the Mark of Mastery exam to be deemed true Keyblade Masters. In order to do this, they need to open the 7 keyholes in the 7 sleeping worlds. Helping them out are Dream Meters that can be formed after collecting enough items to create them. Sora and Riku get separated, and after a certain amount of time they fall asleep and switch to the other character, this being the drop system in the game. At least you can give the next character a bonus if you collected enough Dream Drops. The game stays true to the Kingdom Hearts style hack-and-slash action RPG with small amounts of platforming. And with that out of the way, let me talk about what I liked about the game. First, the presentation is wonderful. Everything from the 3D effects to the graphics to the music and everything in between. The game looks to be on par with the PS2 games, except it looks a little smoother. The different ways to attack in the game help give it a variety in terms of how you want to handle the enemies. The new attacks are flow motion, reality shift, and linking up with your Dream Meters. Oh, and your magic no longer feels useless. Flow motion lets you bounce off buildings, swing off poles, ride some rails, or even fling your enemies. Not only do the attacks feel different and powerful, but they can also help you move around faster. Reality shifts feel like mini-games that if you win, you can cause a lot of damage to the enemy or enemies around you. It's done when the bottom screen lets you slide down with your finger. Each world has a different reality shift, so it's nice that a lot of thought was put into it. There are some old worlds, but there are more new worlds than old. My favorite is Symphony of Sorcery. I like that when you hit an enemy, it makes a music note instead of making a sound effect. In fact, music is really the only thing you hear in the world, and I like that little touch they did to pay homage to Fantasia. While you play as Sora and Riku, their parts are very different from each other, and even have different stories, so it was nice that a lot of the game didn't feel like it was copy and pasted. Though the first few worlds do feel similar, they quickly get different places to go to. And after you beat the game, you'll get some bonuses, and you can start a new game with extra features. I love it when an RPG or any game does that. And now for what I didn't like about the game. Later on, the game gets really cheap. I've never had a game where I thought I would crack my teeth. They throw so many powerful enemies at you at once, and there's about 3 waves of enemies at a spawn point. You can use flow motion against many of the big enemies, but as soon as one of them hits you, it's pretty much over. I can't tell you how many times I've tried to heal myself only to get hit by a homing fireball I didn't see coming while I was in midair. Some of the later bosses have some really cheap attacks. I'm not talking about the ones where you only have 1 HP left. That I'm used to. I'm talking about those lasers you can't avoid near the end of the game with Riku, or the second to last boss whose weapon somehow turns into a maze-like thing, and if you get pushed through it, you'll die before you get out of it. Even if you have full health. If you don't have the Dream Meter that has the 1 HP left ability, you're going to have a really tough time. For the record, I played and beat it on Proud Mode. The story can get a little confusing. In fact, the most confusing part of the story is how they try to integrate dreams and time travel. Yeah, you heard me. I get that in dreams the worlds aren't affected by real time, but later on they tried to integrate time travel for the real world, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you try to think about it. The drop system will force you to switch between the characters unless you use a Drop Me Not item. If you're in the middle of a boss fight with the drop meter about to run out, and you don't have a Drop Me Not, sucks to be you! Speaking of which, I really hated the part where I had to fight the first 3 bosses in the game in a row, especially Wargoyle! I hate fighting him as Sora. His long reach, his multiple attacks, the whole thing! Now, I haven't really heard anyone else complain about this, so I'm wondering if it's just me or something. But the button responses didn't seem to work all the time. Using magic when the meter is full, blocking an attack while standing still, even when I'm in the pause menu, the confirm or back button doesn't respond all the time. It only worked about 70% of the time. I know my L button is busted, so I can't blame the game for that, but the other buttons work for the other games I have, so does anyone else have the same problem? Now I'm going to move on to Icarus Uprising. I wasn't able to do a thoughts video before as I couldn't fully enjoy it since my L button was busted, as I mentioned earlier. Thanks to PokeHacker, who gave me a tip on how to temporarily fix it, I was able to beat it, but it quickly became annoying once it wasn't working again. The tip is simply lift the L button up and blow into it. Believe it or not, it works as long as the button can still click. I think you know what I mean. So I had to wait till I got back to America so I could buy the Circle Pad Pro and play online since my internet connection sucked there. Thank you very much, Belkin Riders, you suck! And now I can say it's my favorite game on the 3DS. First up, the presentation is outstanding. I love how the game looks, the soundtrack is beautiful, and I love the dialogue between the characters. It's never dull or boring. The scriptwriters should be commended for their work. Speaking of which, the characters have tons of personality and charm. It's really hard not to get sucked into the game, and it's even harder not to laugh at times. After the first arc of the storyline, the story changes a lot without losing focus on the major plot of the game, so many things will happen that you won't see coming, and they are all either exciting or emotional. The combat is well thought out, using lots of dodges and ways to attack, such as dash attacks, charge attacks, and melee. It's also clever to throw in some enemies that can only be killed a certain way, so you can't just rely on button mashing the whole time. There are tons of weapons for you to get, find, or fuse, each with their own strengths. Finally, the multiplayer mode is fun, with my favorite mode being free-for-all. I only have two small gripes about the game. The first one being that some levels can really drag on. Some of them take longer to beat than they should, and the other is how the walking and running mechanics work. You can't go from a walking movement to a running movement, or vice versa. If you want to change, you have to stop, then move the circle pad, but if you're moving it all the way in one direction, it will run. Sometimes this has caused me to fall off of some cliffs, but other than that, it's only a minor nuisance. I know that others have problems with the controls or feel that they just weren't set up properly. I, on the other hand, played Metroid Prime Hunters on the original DS, so I'm hoping that if you've played that, then getting the hang of Icarus Uprising shouldn't be a problem. Oh, looks like I forgot to talk about the story and gameplay. Let me correct that real quick. Basically, the storyline, well, for the first part, you're trying to stop Medusa from attacking the humans. Pretty simple, straightforward. The gameplay is set up into two different parts. You have the on-rail shooter, and then you have the on-foot combat. That's pretty much it. If you can only get one of them for your 3DS, I say try Kid Icarus Uprising and see if you have any problems with the controls. If you don't, then pick up the game, as it has a lot to offer. If you're a fan of Kingdom Hearts and have a 3DS, then you should buy it. Hopefully you won't have any control issues like I did. I also forgot that Dream Drop Distance is pretty much fan service. If there's ever been an original character in the series you've liked, chances are you'll see them again in this game. No, I'm not talking about Disney or Final Fantasy characters, I'm talking about any characters they created. I think you know who I mean. Though honestly, between the two, I would pick Kid Icarus Uprising, but it's hard to go wrong with either game.